If a single drop of this liquid hits your eye, you will go temporarily blind. If you inhale the mist, your lungs will instantly spasm, you will choke for air, and your nervous system will violently force you to vomit. We are not talking about a synthetic weapon leaked from a military lab. We are talking about the biological payload of a 10-pound, half-blind furball that is probably digging under your porch right now. You think of the skunk as a joke, a stinky nuisance that ruins your lawn. But nature knows the truth. This slow, clumsy creature is a walking chemical tank. It is an animal that casually eats venomous rattlesnakes for breakfast, forces starving grizzly bears to run away in terror, and holds an entire continent hostage with a weapon so perfect the CIA tried and failed to copy it. Today, we strip away the cartoon myth. You are about to see exactly what makes this 10-pound pacifist the most dangerous and untouchable roommate you will ever have. To understand how confident and untouchable the skunk truly is, you only need to look at its fur. Survival in the wild is entirely dictated by the art of camouflage. If you want to live, you blend in. Deer mimic the dead autumn grass. Coyotes melt into the shadows of the tree line. Mice look exactly like the dirt they scurry across. But the skunk? The skunk wears the highest contrast outfit mathematically possible on planet Earth. Pitch black and brilliant, blinding white. In evolutionary biology, this is known as aposematism, a warning coloration. But nature didn't just give the skunk a bright coat, it gave it a highly specific schematic. Look closely at the geometry of those white stripes. They start at the top of the head, split down the back, and point directly toward the tail. Nature literally painted a giant, glowing neon arrow on the animal's back that explicitly reads, "The weapon is located exactly here." The skunk doesn't need to hide. Its fur is a broadcast of brutal, direct reality. It is a visual guarantee that says, "I am here, I am highly toxic, and if you take one more step, you will carry the physical trauma of this encounter for the rest of your life." When a predator ignores that neon warning sign, the skunk unleashes its arsenal. And to call it simply a bad smell is a massive, almost insulting understatement to the science of chemistry. Hidden just inside the skunk's rectum are two highly specialized muscular glands, resembling the thrusters of a miniature jet engine. These are not simple sprayers. They are highly articulated nozzles called papillae. The skunk can independently aim these nozzles with the calculated precision of a trained sniper. It can choose to fire a highly pressurized, atomized mist to create a toxic cloud, or a direct concentrated stream of yellow oil, hitting a moving target with devastating accuracy from up to 15 feet away. The payload of this biological weapon consists of a volatile cocktail of compounds called thiols. Thiols are sulfur-based chemicals, the exact same foundational molecular structures found in crude oil, rotting flesh, and decaying organic matter. Human beings are evolutionarily hardwired to detect thiols in concentrations as incredibly tiny as 1 part per 10 billion. It is nature's ultimate, deeply ingrained alarm bell for death and disease. But when a blast of pure, concentrated skunk essence hits a predator directly in the face, it ceases to be a smell. It acts as a severe, aggressive chemical irritant. It physically burns the retinas, causing intense, temporary blindness. It drastically inflames the mucous membranes in the nose and lungs, causing the animal to violently gasp for air. The chemical signature is so overwhelmingly dense that it short-circuits the predator's neurological system, triggering immediate, uncontrollable vomiting. That is why the grizzly bear runs away. But the true, sinister genius of the skunk's chemistry is a secondary weapon that American homeowners know all too well: the zombie scent. Imagine your dog gets sprayed in the backyard. You panic. You spend hours scrubbing your pet with specialized shampoos. You finally get the smell out. A month passes. Autumn arrives. You take your dog for a walk in the cold rain. Your wet dog walks back into your house, shakes its fur, and suddenly, the horrific, eye-watering stench of the skunk magically returns, completely filling your living room as if the attack happened 5 minutes ago. How is this scientifically possible? Along with the instantly foul-smelling thiols, the skunk's spray contains a chemical sleeper agent, compounds known as thioacetates. Thioacetates do not smell. They sit quietly, heavily glued to your dog's fur, completely undetectable to the human nose. But the moment water touches them, a violent chemical hydrolysis occurs. The water acts as a detonator, stripping away a specific chemical bond and instantly converting those silent thioacetates back into foul-smelling thiols. The scent literally rises from the dead. And unless you completely destroy the molecular structure with intense chemical oxidation, every single time your dog gets wet for the next 6 months, the ghost of that skunk will haunt your house. This brings us to the greatest, most enduring myth of rural American life: the tomato juice bath. If your dog gets sprayed, your first instinct is likely to buy 10 gallons of tomato juice and soak them in it. Do not do this. You are not neutralizing the skunk spray. You are simply experiencing olfactory fatigue. The tomato smell is so overpowering that your nose temporarily stops registering the skunk smell. But the moment you rinse the dog off, the thiols are still there. You have accomplished nothing, except now you have a foul-smelling, highly acidic dog that is vigorously wiping red tomato paste all over your expensive furniture. It wasn't until 1993 that a materials chemist named Paul Krebaum finally cracked the code. He realized that to defeat the skunk, you couldn't mask the smell, you had to alter the molecules themselves. He created a simple, perfectly balanced formula: 1 quart of 3% hydrogen peroxide, a 1/4 cup of baking soda, and a teaspoon of liquid dish soap. When you apply this to a sprayed dog, a massive chemical reaction occurs. The oxygen molecules from the peroxide violently attack the sulfur molecules in the skunk's thiols, completely oxidizing them and turning them into odorless sulfonic acids. It is a total molecular victory. But there is a catch. You cannot buy this miracle cure in a bottle at the store. The chemical reaction releases so much trapped oxygen gas that if you put it in a sealed plastic bottle and put it on a shelf, the bottle would literally explode like a small bomb. You have to mix it fresh, right on the battlefield of your driveway. The skunk's chemical weapon is so incredibly effective that it actually caught the attention of the highest levels of the United States military. During the darkest days of World War II, the Office of Strategic Services, the OSS, which was the precursor to the modern CIA, was looking for unconventional weapons to help the French resistance fight the occupying Nazi forces. They decided to copy the skunk. Top American scientists engineered a top-secret, highly concentrated, sulfur-based liquid spray. The weapon was officially codenamed Project Who Me. The strategy was simple but humiliating. French partisans were supposed to sneak up behind German officers in crowded cafes or on the street and covertly spray the liquid onto their uniforms. The resulting stench was designed to perfectly mimic a skunk and severe human flatulence. The goal was to completely demoralize the enemy officers, making them outcasts among their own ranks and destroying their authority. It was a brilliant psychological warfare concept. But the project was an absolute, catastrophic failure. The OSS scientists quickly realized that the chemical was far too volatile. It was impossible to control. The American spies and French resistance fighters who tried to deploy the weapon ended up heavily contaminating themselves, their own safe houses, and their equipment. The smell was so potent that the attackers became the victims of their own biological warfare. The United States military, with all its funding and scientific brilliance, had to abandon the project. They simply could not safely wield the weapon that a 10-pound, nearsighted rodent manages with effortless, daily perfection. For generations, science completely misclassified the skunk. Because of their body shape, their sharp teeth, and their solitary, predatory habits, early biologists simply lumped them in with the Mustelidae family, the same group that includes weasels, badgers, wolverines, and ferrets. They were often just called oversized polecats. But the skunk is not a weasel. In the late 1990s, advanced DNA sequencing technology allowed scientists to finally look past the animal's physical appearance and read its actual genetic code. The results revealed a startling truth. The skunk's DNA was so fundamentally unique, so completely isolated from any other predator on Earth, that the scientific community had to rip up the textbooks and create an entirely new biological family just to categorize them. They were reclassified into their own exclusive family, Mephitidae, a Latin word that translates directly and appropriately to stink. They are an evolutionary island. Millions of years ago, the skunk branched off from the rest of the mammalian family tree and walked a solitary, highly toxic path of survival. Relying entirely on a chemical weapon no other animal on the planet dared to develop. Because they possess this ultimate, unbeatable weapon, people naturally assume skunks are arrogant. We see them casually waddling across a dark suburban road, ignoring approaching headlights, or walking right up to us on a hiking trail without breaking their stride, and we think they are fearless, aggressive bullies trying to pick a fight. But the truth is far more tragic. The skunk is not arrogant. It is practically blind. Skunks suffer from extreme biological myopia. They physically cannot see objects with any level of clarity beyond about 10 feet or 3 meters. To a skunk, the vast, open world is a blurry, confusing, and terrifying place. When you are standing just 15 feet away on your driveway, you are not a human. You are just a vague, shapeless shadow. They don't run away from you because they literally do not know you are there until you are practically stepping on them. Because they are so visually vulnerable, you might think they would shoot first and ask questions later. But the skunk is actually a desperate pacifist. As we established, manufacturing that military-grade chemical payload requires a massive amount of metabolic calories. If a skunk panics and fully empties its glands, it can take up to 10 full days to biologically reload. For those 10 days, this slow, blind animal is completely defenseless. Spraying is an absolute worst-case scenario. To avoid wasting its precious ammunition, the skunk will give you multiple, desperate warnings. It will hiss. It will aggressively stomp its front paws on the ground, trying to imitate the sound of a much larger, heavier animal. But the most spectacular warning in the animal kingdom belongs to a specific species, the spotted skunk. When threatened, the spotted skunk will suddenly throw its entire body weight forward, kicking its back legs high into the air, and perform a perfect, acrobatic handstand. It will literally walk toward you on its front paws, spreading its back legs to aim its loaded tail directly at your face. To a human, it looks incredibly cute, even comical, but in the brutal reality of the wild, this handstand is the biological equivalent of pulling the pin on a live grenade and holding it in the air. So, if they are half-blind pacifists that just want to be left alone, why do they constantly invade our pristine, tightly controlled American suburbs? They are not there to tip over your garbage cans like raccoons. They are not looking for your leftover pizza. They are there for a highly specific, subterranean delicacy: grubs. The manicured, perfectly watered American lawn is an artificial ecosystem, and it happens to be the absolute perfect breeding ground for beetle larvae, grubs, which live just an inch beneath the soil. To a hungry skunk, your front yard is a neon-lit, all-you-can-eat buffet, and to get to that buffet, the skunk uses a set of physical tools that would make a grizzly bear jealous. Skunks possess incredibly powerful, elongated front claws, specifically engineered by evolution for heavy-duty excavation. When a skunk's highly sensitive nose detects the faint movement of a grub under the dirt, it goes to work with ruthless efficiency. In a single night, one waddling, nearsighted skunk can systematically dismantle a $5,000 landscaping job. They don't just dig random, messy holes. They methodically peel back the turf, rolling up perfect squares of expensive green sod like a cheap piece of living room carpet. Homeowners wake up to find their flawless, chemically treated lawns looking like the site of an artillery barrage. You cannot fence them out. They will dig under it. You cannot easily trap them without risking a chemical explosion. If you have grubs, the blind excavator will find them, and it will destroy your property to get them. But before you declare total, unconditional war on the lawn destroyer, you need to understand what else the skunk is hunting on your property. While they love grubs, skunks are the undisputed, heavy-duty exterminators of the natural world. They are the North American equivalent of the legendary African honey badger. Because their fur is incredibly dense and their skin is tough, skunks routinely hunt and eat highly venomous insects that other predators strictly avoid. They will happily chew through a nest of black widow spiders or crunch on highly toxic bark scorpions, completely ignoring the painful bites and stings. But their true, horrifying superpower lies deep within their blood. Imagine a face-off in the high desert of Arizona or the thick brush of Texas. A blind, waddling skunk stumbles directly into the path of a massive, coiled, western diamondback rattlesnake. The snake violently shakes its rattle, a terrifying acoustic warning that sends humans, dogs, and coyotes sprinting for their lives. The skunk doesn't run. It approaches. The rattlesnake strikes with lightning speed, sinking its fangs directly into the skunk's face, injecting a massive dose of hemotoxic venom designed to rapidly melt tissue, destroy blood vessels, and cause massive internal bleeding. For any other mammal of that size, this is an agonizing, guaranteed death sentence. For the skunk, it is barely an inconvenience. Evolutionary biologists have discovered that skunks possess specialized, highly mutated proteins in their bloodstream. Macrophages that actively bind to and completely neutralize the snake's venom before it can do any biological damage. The skunk literally shakes off the lethal strike, calmly pins the snake down, bites the head off the rattlesnake, and eats the deadly apex predator like a piece of spaghetti. While the skunk's ability to devour venomous snakes makes it a valuable, misunderstood asset to the ecosystem, there is a very dark, very real reason why you must always treat these animals with extreme caution. Aside from the chemical weapon, the skunk carries a biological threat that is 100% fatal to humans if left untreated. In North America, skunks are one of the primary terrestrial reservoirs for the rabies virus. As we established, a healthy skunk is a nocturnal, half-blind pacifist. It wants to avoid you at all costs. It operates under the cover of darkness and will run away, stomp its feet, or hiss before it ever resorts to violence. But rabies is a virus that maliciously hijacks the mammalian brain. It completely rewires the animal's neurological circuitry, systematically deleting every survival instinct, every ounce of fear, and every trace of its natural pacifism. If you're standing in your driveway or hiking on a suburban trail in the middle of a bright, sunny afternoon, and you see a skunk confidently walking toward you, do not pull out your phone to take a video. Do not assume it is tame, sick with a simple cold, or acting friendly like a Disney character. A skunk that does not run away from a human in broad daylight is experiencing a terrifying biological override. It is a zombie, driven entirely by a virus demanding to spread through a bite. In that moment, the threat of being sprayed with foul-smelling thiols is irrelevant. You are looking at a silent, walking death sentence. The only viable survival strategy in this scenario is to immediately turn around, retreat indoors, and call animal control. With a military-grade chemical spray, a complete immunity to rattlesnake venom, and a reputation for carrying rabies, it seems as though the skunk is an invincible biological fortress. Wolves won't touch it. Bears run from it. Coyotes learn the hard way to leave it alone. But nature abhors a vacuum, and it does not allow cheat codes to exist forever. Evolution eventually built the perfect, tailor-made assassin to eliminate the skunk. That assassin is the great horned owl. The great horned owl is a massive, incredibly powerful avian predator with a wingspan of nearly 5 feet and talons that can exert a crushing force of hundreds of pounds per square inch. But its size and strength are not what makes it the ultimate skunk killer. The owl's true superpower lies in a biological deficiency.
The great horned owl has virtually no sense of smell. Its olfactory bulb is incredibly underdeveloped. When a skunk wanders into a moonlit clearing looking for grubs, the owl drops from the sky.
Because of specialized serrated feathers, the owl's flight is completely, utterly silent. The nearsighted skunk never sees it coming, and it certainly never hears it. The owl slams into the skunk's back, driving its massive talons deep into the animal's spine. In its final moments, the terrified skunk will unleash its chemical weapon, desperately firing a point-blank blast of concentrated thiols directly into the face and feathers of the bird. But the owl does not care. The chemical alarm bell that terrifies a grizzly bear simply does not register in the owl's brain. To the great horned owl, the skunk's ultimate, unanswerable weapon is nothing more than a harmless mist. The owl kills the skunk, carries the foul-smelling carcass up into the trees, and eats it in peace. It is the only predator in the North American woods that routinely bathes in the skunk's chemical warfare and wins.
For the skunks, it managed to avoid the silent strike of the owl. A different kind of enemy approaches every year: the brutal, freezing North American winter. Skunks do not hibernate in the true sense of the word. They do not drop their heart rate and sleep uninterrupted for 6 months like a bear. Instead, they enter a state called torpor, a deep, lethargic sleep where their metabolism slows down. But they can still wake up during warm spells to forage for food. However, when the temperature plummets below zero and the ground freezes solid, survival becomes a matter of mathematics. A 10-pound animal loses body heat incredibly fast. To survive the harshest weeks of winter, the solitary, aggressive, highly territorial skunk is forced to do something completely out of character. It negotiates a biological Cold War truce. Deep underground, in abandoned woodchuck burrows or hollowed-out logs, skunks will gather together to share body heat. But they don't just sleep with other skunks. Biologists have routinely excavated winter dens and found a bizarre, unbelievable picture of interspecies survival. In the freezing dark, you will find a skunk sleeping tightly pressed against a raccoon, an opossum, and sometimes even a fox. For 9 months of the year, these animals are bitter rivals, constantly competing for food, territory, and survival. But in the dead of winter, the chemical tank, the trash panda, and the cunning predator lay down their arms. They become living, breathing space heaters for one another, bound by a mutual, desperate agreement that freezing to death is worse than sleeping next to the enemy. As soon as the spring thaw arrives, the truce is instantly broken, and the brutal rules of the wild resume. You spend thousands of dollars and endless hours trying to keep this 10-pound nightmare off your property. But here is the brutal irony of the American suburb. You actually need him. While you sleep behind locked doors, this half-blind sniper is executing the real threats. He is hunting down the black widow spiders hiding in your garage. He is slaughtering disease-carrying mice. He is actively seeking out and eating the rattlesnakes that could easily kill your dog. The skunk is the neighborhood hitman, wiping out the venomous pests you are too afraid to touch, completely free of charge. So the next time that sharp scent of sulfur wakes you up at 2 a.m., don't reach for the phone. Let the walking chemical tank do his job. The skunk owns the dark outside your house. But what about the dark inside your house? Next time, we look at a creature that has already breached your walls, breeding by the thousands under your floorboards, and actively mutating its DNA to survive your poisons. Until then, stay out of the crosshairs and never trust a black and white arrow.